Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
To drive creative new partnerships, let me be clear. Now, even as we evolve our institution, certain principles of our international system are sacrosanct.
First thing I want to do is give you our phone number and see if you can decipher the president here.
Let me be clear. Now, even as we evolve our institution.
He at least prefaced it, John, by saying, let me be clear. What I'm about to say is incredibly important.
Let me be clear. Now, even as we evolve our institution.
Any idea, Hannah?
I got nothing. I heard institution at the end.
Now, even as we evolve our institution.
I got that part. Marsh, can you add anything to this, please?
Yeah, I think he's revealing he's a Cardinal fan of the infielders. It's the Ozzie Smith Institution.
Let me be clear. Now, even as we evolve our institution.
Let me be clear.
We might need to have Brian Hansen come on the show this morning and translate for us.
He is the expert.
Couple months ago, classic moment in Wake Up. By the way, a lot of things happening today in Washington, D.C. Last minute add to the lineup today. Congressman, this is so important what's happening in D.C. Congressman Mark Alford is going to be here 8:35 this morning. Potential shutdown, what's happening. They're going after McCarthy. And really just a lot of dissension within the Republican Party. Could not come at a worse time for Republicans, in my opinion. Raven Harrison, 710. She is sharp. Love Raven Harrison. She's going to be reacting to the news of the day. Getting ready for big hearing today. Merrick Garland, Attorney General. They're doing a hearing today regarding the weaponization from the Department of Justice. So we're going to be covering that on the show. So a lot of things going on. Also, hear the 911 call from a progressive mayor in a western city. She calls 911. Here's why. You call 911. Man, we heap praise on our 911 operators as the top line when we talk about frontline responders. It's 911 operators. This progressive mayor in a western city calls 911. We have the audio of the 911 call. You call 911 when there's an emergency, when something's going bad. She called because there were people at a Walmart with an opposing point of view. I'm not kidding. You got to hear this. We'll do that coming up at 8:10 this morning here on the show. Brian Houseworth is here, too. I want to ask if you can help us. We're trying to decipher something Joe Biden said.
Okay. Let me be clear. Now, even as we evolve our institution. Let me be clear. Now, even as we evolve our institution.
Do you have any idea?
I don't.
All right.
That is real. Can you play it one more time?
I can't.
Let me be clear. Now, even as we evolve our institution.
I heard him say, let me be clear, and I heard him say institution, but there's something between there. I'm not sure what is said.
So we're all on the same page. Great.
How often does everybody here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri agree on something?
Not very often.
No.
I mean, we're not all in lockstep, and we disagree at times, and that's okay. But no, I don't think I'm not sure that's very difficult to understand.
And we never did. A couple of moments, I think this was one of right up there with Dick Morris chastising John for daring to ask him about how he got some polling wrong. And Dick Morris, well, it was the hurricane, see? That was a great moment in show history.
Our lives were down. We couldn't get the polling. Took no phones.
Doing his best impression of the Joker from the old 60s Batman TV show. A couple months ago, we had Brian Hansen. He is the star of the Gary Nolan Show, who's here weekday mornings, 9 to noon here on the radio station. And we had just a collection of things that we were trying to interpret. That's part of our job here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Here's the news. Here's the analysis. Here's our opinions. And here's how it affects you. And so we were trying, in an effort to provide a public service to the American folks, trying to decipher what it is that Joe Biden says.
True international effort to pressure.
Donald Trump does pose an excellent threat to this.
It's a right for people that bad at health care.
And we spent time, we even went to the length of slowing the audio down. Did we ever decipher that one, Hannah?
I think that was the one that we were pretty clear on.
We slowed this one down.
True international effort to pressure.
True dash dub it a pressure.
Senator Fetterman? No.
True international effort to pressure.
We couldn't figure that one out.
Donald Trump does pose an excellent threat to this.
A nextional threat. Is that existential threat?
I think that's what he was trying to say. I don't know, but I'm guessing.
It's a right for people to have bata kefker, which is a Greek type of dessert that you can find at some Greek restaurants all across.
Really?
Sure. You go to Eris's in Jefferson City, or
the one cut in little diamonds, right?
They have them here. The one next to Best Buy, they have those.
It's a right for everybody to have Greek desserts. Bata kefker. It's a Greek dessert. All right, so here's the real stuff happening today in Washington, D.C. I want to share some of an email that Congressman Mark Alford sent to me. He is here 8:35. He's a late add to the lineup because what is happening today in D.C. Listen, and I'm not one of those, not a fear monger or anything like that. And I've said for months, government shutdown happens this time every year, and the news outlets trying to scare us and just like take their foot and just slowly push us off the Missouri bluffs right into the Missouri River. That's what they try to do to the American, just slowly push us off. And usually it's non-eventful. It can suck for a lot of people. Don't get paid. You're still going to get your Social Security checks.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
that's a big deal to our audience. But
yeah,
these federal employees are going to get paid one way or the other.
Yeah,
where they are.
And I just think it's a bad time for the Republican Party. Here's a chance, to unity and move forward. And there's Matt Gaetz, Kevin McCarthy, and they're all just gumming stuff up. I'll be interested to get the congressman's take, so I hope that you're going to be joining us here at 8:35. Here's what Mark Alford tells me. He says, it is important that we keep our government funded, that we pay our federal workers, and we give our military a 5.2% pay raise. There are some members that are just dead set on just going into a government shutdown. They think they need to send a message. He says, the message I want to send to the 4th Congressional District, that's a lot of us hanging out here this morning, is that we can get this done. And again, I go back to, these are adults handling our business in Washington, D.C. I mean, if we get down to the core of what's happening, and I get it, man, you're talking about ideological differences, philosophical differences, and it's hard to get 435 folks or 214 Republicans. It's hard to get even those of the same party, hard to get folks on the same page.
That's it is fascinating. But he's trying to be he sounds like he's trying to be a statesman and everything else, but they have been on recess for they being not speaking about him, just in general, for a couple of months. They've been back in the district. It always seems like it doesn't matter who's in charge. It always seems like they wait until the last minute, and it does seem that they do come up with a plan, but it's usually very late in the game. I'd point back out in 1996. I'm trying to think, 95 or 96. Newt Gingrich did lead when he was Speaker of the House, there was a government shutdown, and the Republicans really, they got some bad publicity over that, and they paid a little bit of a price at the polls.
Yep,
they
sure
did.
Golden opportunity. I think. Glad you are here this morning. Weather, rain today, high 71, rain over the next several days. So there are a lot of things happening in D.C. Hunter Biden's going to plead not guilty to federal gun charges. He wants the court hearing by video. It's not surprising that he's going to plead not guilty to this, but they want to do it by video. His attorney, Abby Lowell, argued that he's going to be burdened by traveling from Los Angeles for the brief appearance. Biden's visit would also place a significant financial and logistical burden on the government in downtown Wilmington. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go to court either, man. I don't want to be paraded through there. I don't want the press taking my photos. I'm being charged for lying on gun forms. I'm being charged for various crimes. I wouldn't want to do the perp walk either, would you?
Well, and former President Trump has had to appear in person a number of times for these court appearances. It'll be interesting to see what it is for him. Each case is different. For Boone County, and not comparing, there's no comparison to those, Trump and Biden, two high-profile people, Hunter Biden we're talking about. But for Boone County, they are, for the most part, they are allowed to be on video unless the judge needs to see them in person. Now, when I say on video from the jail,
right.
I don't know. I don't remember too many defendants being on a video where they're not in jail.
I'm cool with video appearances. If my taxpayer dollar if we're saving gas money transporting charged defendants, if we're saving a little bit of gas money, running them back and forth. I am all.
And there could be a safety issue too.
Sure.
There are, but I saw one sentencing a couple weeks ago where they did not take Ricky Murray to the sentencing, and that is highly unusual. He was sentenced from the jail.
Hannah, did you see Sean's text regarding the Bidenisms?
I did.
What do you think? Should
I don't
give it a shot?
know. I'm a little scared since we didn't get a chance to do that off air. See if it accidentally says anything bad.
It'd be fine. Sean's.
You hope.
Don't worry about it, Hannah.
You hope.
I'll take the blame. Listen, I always have your guys' back. I'll take the blame for this one. Sean says, have you tried playing the Bidenisms backwards? Maybe then we can decipher, because we're trying to decipher what the president said this morning.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
He prefaces by saying, let me be clear. Now, John, when John and I are having lunch at Duke's in Jefferson City, and John, we're talking, and he'll say, Branden, let me be clear. John speaks succinctly and more clearly than he already does.
More clearly
than he usually does.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
So Sean's idea, what if we played it backwards? Let's see if that helps.
Wow, Paul is dead.
It makes the same amount of sense.
Yes. What if we did the Bidenisms, our montage of Bidenisms backwards? Maybe we can figure out what Medicare is and my bus bin wipe.
Yep,
6:19 this morning. I am already agreeing with producer Hannah. It makes just as much sense played in reverse as it does backwards. Check this out from Mike via text, 874-9390. Over $33 trillion in debt. We are beyond broke. Shut it all down. And talk to me in a year if they think about balancing the budget. Something that can't go on forever, won't, and we are beyond that point at this time. And there is a lot of, they just kicking the can down the road. They're kicking a rock, like kicking a big old rock down the road, and it hurts every time they kick that dang thing and push it further and further and further on down the road. Coming up a few minutes from now, daily D.C. rundown. Is Biden throwing shade at Benjamin Netanyahu?
Whoa, look at you using the term throwing shade.
Well, here's the next part of that is, and then I'm going to ask producer Hannah, am I using the phrase throwing shade correctly? Because I'm not sure that I'm doing it properly.
Congress and a legal ability to get the information we need. That's going to be bank statements, that's going to be credit card statements, that's going to be family members coming in and answering the questions so the American public can know.
Is that House Speaker throwing shade at progressives in the national news outlets, Hannah? Because they keep saying, well, there's no proof to bring forward an impeachment inquiry. They don't understand what an impeachment inquiry is. See, you have an impeachment inquiry to go and gather more evidence. So am I using the phrase properly when I say, is Kevin McCarthy throwing shade at idiot progressives in the national news?
You are, and I'm so proud.
John, I get some
Gold
points.
star.
There you go.
I'll look forward to collecting my points. Feel Good Friday, 8:35.
Yeah, don't get too excited.
Other news here in the Daily DC Rundown. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu set to have his long-coveted meeting with Joe today, bringing together the two leaders for the first time since the Israeli leader took office. Now, Netanyahu has been a frequent visitor to the White House over the years, and Israeli leaders typically invited within a few weeks of taking office. Now, this lengthy delay in setting up the meeting with Joe and the White House decision to hold the meeting in New York rather than Washington, widely interpreted in Israel as signs of U.S. displeasure with Netanyahu's new government. So is the White House's Joe throwing shade, Hannah, at Benjamin Netanyahu by saying, well, we're not going to meet in the White House. Sometimes we find cocaine and stuff lying around here, so let's not meet here. Let's do it in New York. Is he throwing shade by not having him come to the White House? Am I using the phrase properly?
Maybe not there, no.
All right. We'll take some of those points away that I just earned on a Feel Good Friday at 8:35. White House tight-lipped ahead of the meeting today, declining to offer much detail on what would be on Biden's agenda for the talks. Biden officials repeatedly raised concerns about Netanyahu's contentious plan to overhaul their judicial system because progressives, they like to be an eighth grader, like at Blair Oaks Middle School out in the hallway. Just drop it in on other people's business that has nothing to do.
Being nosy.
Amen. Meanwhile, speaking of getting into other people's business,
here we go.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington this week comes at a critical juncture for his alliance with the U.S. as Republican leaders in Congress diverge on how to send more military and humanitarian aid to the country. Joe is seeking an additional $24 billion in security and humanitarian aid because we're all good here. We're good. Gas prices are low. Grocery prices are cheap. We love the fact that we're being forced to buy electric vehicles. We're good. We got $24 billion to spare, man. He says it's in line with his promise to help the country for as long as it takes to oust Russia from its borders. Republicans now in control of the House. Now, last time Netanyahu was in D.C. and spoke there, remember you had Pelosi and Kamala Harris dramatically unfurling the Ukrainian flag behind them. Well, that's when Dems were in control. 9 months later, Republicans in control of the House majority, growing awareness among voters about continued financial support for Ukraine. House Republicans plan to hold their first hearing next week in their impeachment inquiry in Joe. The hearing scheduled for September 28th. That would be next Thursday. It's expected to focus on constitutional and legal questions that surround the allegations of Biden's involvement in Hunter's overseas businesses, according to a spokesman from the House Oversight Committee. Republicans contend that Biden's actions from his time as vice president show a culture of corruption. As a matter of fact, another story this morning, Joe Biden's, he had several email aliases. One of them was 67stingray@gmx.com. Robin Ware, 456@gmail.com. Robert L. Peters at PCI.gov. But apparently his government paid assistant when he was vice president, summer 2015, sent an email to his government aliases, those email addresses, with the subject line, see below, these are cell numbers. Biden, his business partner, looped into these cell phone numbers in this email.
will return and join us to do this work. And in the first 6 weeks, I can report to you that the answer has been a resounding yes. The former circuit attorneys have a dedication to this office and really are committed to restoring it to where it was in the past and making it even better.
All right, St. Louis prosecuting attorney Gabe Gore, appointed by Governor Mike Parson, I guess almost 3 months ago. That was after the failed former prosecutor Kimberly Gardner, George Soros-backed failed progressive prosecutor Kimberly Gardner, resigned. And, of course, her story should have come to a head prior to that poor kid from Tennessee losing both of her legs because the dude that should have been prosecuted, should at the very least have been in jail, was out running the streets wild. So that was from a 6-week update from St. Louis prosecuting attorney Gabe Gore. Here's what we're doing. We're hiring people. And we were kind of curious, as we were big on this story for a long time, John, and it finally, as a matter of fact, St. Louis Post-Dispatch posited the story as Kim Gardner and her unexpected resignation. Like, it was only you that was not expecting that, which I thought was kind of hilarious. What is happening now? I want to bring in famed defense attorney Ken Belkin to update us on what's happening in Missouri's second largest city. Ken, welcome into the show. So since Governor Parson has appointed this Gabe Gore, what's happening now as it relates to prosecutions?
Well, thank you for having me, and good morning, Missouri. You know, this is emblematic of what's happening across the country in most of our urban areas. You have these district attorneys who are just, hell-bent on not enforcing the law. Now, a district attorney doesn't write the laws. They have to enforce the laws that the legislature writes. And they do have some discretion, but you're seeing a lot of, and I hate to, brand it the liberal district attorneys, but liberal district attorneys who are just abusing their prosecutorial discretion and not bringing charges when they clearly could. And Kim Gardner was one of them. She resigned, and Gabe Gore took over. And within a 3-month period, looking back on that same 3-month period a year prior, he brought 1,400 prosecutions compared to Kim Gardner bringing only 620 prosecutions. And she left him, by the way, with 4,500 plus reports where charges could be filed and have yet to be filed.
So, Ken, how are they doing this? What is it that he's doing that all of a sudden, hey, look, we can prosecute these cases. We can make progress. What's he doing?
Like Woody Allen said, 95% of life is just showing up, and he's just showing up with the attorneys he has. I can tell you as a defense attorney in New York, all the DA's offices I deal with are understaffed. He's dealing with understaffing issues, and, he's having his attorneys have to deal with more work than any attorney should have to deal with, but they're doing the work, and that's the key here.
Famed defense attorney Ken Belkin hanging out with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Producer Hannah, John Marsh, I am Branden Rathert. And can you talk more? So we have a lot of, Ken, we have a whole bunch of new young listeners over the past couple of years that voted for Biden. They're looking around. They're going, what the heck did I do? And they're tuning in to Wake Up Mid-Missouri because they're like, okay, what's the news? Can you bottom line this for me? And what are your guys' thoughts on this? So when a newer, younger listener hears the name George Soros and how George Soros has funded prosecuting attorneys in San Francisco, Baltimore, who have prosecuting attorneys of the same ilk of Kimberly Gardner. He backed Kimberly Gardner. Why is it dangerous, this George Soros throwing money at these people?
Funnily enough, years back when I was in my 20s and extremely liberal, as they say, if you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative by 40, you have no brain. I had a severe case of that in my 20s. And I was editor of my school newspaper, and I got invited to have dinner at George Soros' apartment on Fifth Avenue. And I did. And, he backs ultra-liberal causes. That's his point of view. And a lot of these district attorneys, a lot of these politicians he backs in the People's Republic of New York City, where I live, they are hell-bent on something called decarceration. They want to close all the jails. They want to stop prosecuting people. Look, I get it. In a perfect world, we would all love that. But I'm a defense attorney, and I'm telling you, there are some people that behave in such a way they do need to be in a cage for the safety of everyone else. And if we don't do that, you're going to see society break down.
Well, and we saw what happened in St. Louis. We see what happens in all of these other cities. This is just not some old white dudes complaining about stuff. These are real life consequences. And Ken, this might be a little bit out of the scope of your expertise, but one of the things that Gabe Gore, the new prosecuting attorney in St. Louis, said, he was talking about quality of life crimes. burglaries, car thefts, other vehicle break-ins. Now, the public as a whole may not care, but until it happens to you, when somebody breaks into your car, you want them prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But he brings up a very good point that I would like you to expand upon. He says these are things, these quality of life crimes that do not get prosecuted, these are things that drive people out of the city. Can you talk a little bit about the importance then about people, the general safety of people and how we feel about safety when we're in a city where the prosecuting attorney is funded by an uber progressive like George Soros?
Let me tell you something. In Brooklyn and Manhattan, you go into a CVS like I did last night to pick up some cold medicine for my kids and a little ice cream for Mom, who likes some Rocky Road. And let me tell you something. They have bike locks on the freezers to get ice cream. You have to get someone to unlock the freezer. That's how bad it's gotten in New York City. It was not like this a few years ago. You did not need someone to unlock the freezer to get some Haagen-Dazs. What next? Are we going to have to go through a strip search to get Haagen-Dazs? I mean, it's really crazy. But they're not enforcing laws, and these little laws that we don't think are important, it's almost like with children. If you let people slide on the little things, they're going to set the bar much lower, and they're going to take liberties when it comes to the bigger crimes. There's going to be a climate of lawlessness, and that's what you're seeing develop. And I would have to be lying if I denied it.
And I would think if I'm going to the Walgreens and I'm just wanting a little carton of some ice cream, and they've got it locked up, the ice. I understand going and buying an $80 electric shaver and having to get somebody to. I get that, it's pain, but to go and buy a $4 carton of ice cream and I've got to get somebody to unlock the doors for me, that is sad. And I would hope any moment in time somebody goes and does that. I go, where I live, man, this is a weird place. Our guest this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, famed defense attorney Ken Belkin joining us.
Ken, we remember a story Fox aired, a couple months ago that the top prosecutor in Manhattan had to throw out like 300 convictions and let, 50 people out of jail because of some police officers who were found guilty of crimes. An issue like that, what's that mean for the effectiveness of a prosecutor, whether they're in Manhattan or St. Louis?
Well, look, remember, in our system of government, the government has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you've got police officers that they might be well-intentioned, they might be sure they got the right guy, but they just don't have the evidence that connects the dots. So sometimes they've made things up. And we've had a lot of cases like that in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and some of them very serious cases, murders that have had to be overturned and the convictions thrown out. And it's not good. It's a dirty business, policing and going after criminals. It really is a dirty business, and people don't realize that. But you have to do it the right way. And if police are misstepping, they're violating their oath, and they can't prove these cases beyond a reasonable doubt without violating that oath, those cases are properly thrown out.
All right, Ken Belkin with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Interesting point of view as it relates to the current and the former prosecutor in Missouri's second biggest city, as he is a defense attorney. Ken Belkin, anything else that you would like to add before we let you go?
I think as you see quality of life deteriorate in these major cities, look, I'm a liberal. I was always a liberal. I'm a registered Democrat. I've never voted for a Republican. But you're going to see people start to seriously question what their Democratic politicians are saying to them, because they're not going to be able to reject what their eyes and ears are telling them on the ground every day.
Let me ask you this real quick, and I know you got to scoot here in like 30 seconds because you said you're a registered Democrat, and you're a liberal, and these people are looking at these crimes. Even Democrats and progressives are looking at these crimes going, this is crazy. The leadership in the Democrat Party is insanity. What about your financial? How has Joe's Bidenomics affected you?
Well, listen, I can tell you this. I had this argument with a business owner I represent who had to close down 6 businesses, by the way. Her 6th one closed down this Sunday because she could not survive after the COVID lockdowns. It was just impossible, and she had to shut them down. But I tell you this, I had this conversation with her yesterday in my car, and, the 3 years that preceding COVID during the Trump presidency, almost everyone I know that had their own business had the best 3 years they'd ever had in business, including myself. So the proof is in the pudding, as they say.
Ken Belkin, man, thank you for your time on the show this morning. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you very much for having me, Brendan. Have a good morning, everyone.
You bet. Coming up 7:10, Raven Harrison is here. She's reacting to a lot of the stuff happening in D.C., impeachment talks, government shutdown, things like that. Congressman Mark Alford, he's here at 8:35. Coming up 5 minutes from now. John, did you ever watch Kennedy when she was a VJ on MTV? We'll look at futures coming up at 8:25 in the morning. Bell Business News, little twist here. And when your Bidenomics side hustle goes sideways because it's all illegal and stuff, be with us at 8:25 when we do that.
Bummer how that works out.
I know,
Your
right?
illegal job goes sideways.
Yeah.
Man.
Bidenomics, man. And I'll go back to my dad, just turned 74 years old yesterday, and he's back. He's wearing a smock at a gas station, slinging 6 packs of Busch beer and Marlboros at a gas station, waiting for the schedule to come out on Friday where they posted above the microwave, the dirty microwave in the break room. He's 74 years old and working with 19-year-old kids and stuff because, you know, Bidenomics, my dad, one of the greatest computer programmers that I've ever met. I don't know how many computer programmers I've really met in my life, but he's the best, man.
I'm just glad you finally figured out how old he was turning.
74. I got to hang out with him yesterday. What a delightful day yesterday. It was kind of a surprise thing, and not a surprise thing for my dad. It was a surprise to me. It was, oh, yeah, that's right. It's his birthday. Yeah.
Do you forget birthdays often?
Oh, my God. So I've got my middle grandkid.
Yeah.
His birthday is the same day as my dad's birthday.
And you remembered your dad, so you remembered the grandkids, right?
I forgot Liam's birthday.
Oh, no.
I'm an idiot, Hannah. Again, that's where Joe Biden and I are alike. Completely forgot. Devastated.
You think he's going to forgive you?
He shouldn't.
Welcome into the show. There's producer Hannah over there.
Hello.
And I'm getting no help from John Marsh over here.
Darn tootin'.
Oh, this is beautiful, John. I appreciate that you said that in light of what we're about ready to talk about next. And Stephanie Bell is back on Monday. Brian Hausworth is here. My name is Branden. Something we can do for you. Let us know. 874-9390. 874-9390. By the way, coming up 7:35. And check in. Hannah's wedding is coming up. I think Halloween in the cemetery at Centralia. So as we get closer to her wedding, we need to check in, see how that's going. And I will continue to offer more advice to her as she embarks on a new chapter of her life. And the advice, John, again, right?
So excited.
Coming from a guy who's been married twice for a total of 3 years.
Are you working on marriage number 3?
So yesterday on Fox, Hannah went from 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds flat.
You haven't denied it yet.
There's probably 4 women that just heard that right now.
Oh, the
freaking
roster.
out.
The roster.
What? What's he doing? There's only one. There's no roster anymore. So yesterday, so there's a comedian. His name is Hassan Minhaj. I've seen a couple of his. I don't find him particularly funny, but is one of the things he does, and he's
Nicki's brother.
Nicki Minaj. He spells his name Hassan Minhaj. Well, but I think he's from India or something, and a lot of his comedy, he embellishes stories. But that's what comedians do. They embellish stories.
And radio hosts.
My dad's fact-checked that claim. And that's what comedians do. Listen, I love Ron White. Those stories he tells, they're embellished. I know that. Here's where I take exception with Hassan Minhaj, a country where he has got all these incredible freedoms. He criticizes in his comedy, he portrays America as like dangerous for minorities. And there was an article from the New Yorker that said, hey, man, this is like, you're really exaggerating. But what you're exaggerating about is incredibly dangerous. So anyhow, Fox has Kennedy, the former VJ for MTV years ago, back when, Hannah, I don't know if you know this or not, but MTV, music television, you know what they used to do?
Play music videos?
Yeah. They don't do that anymore. Now she's on Fox. She is being asked about Whoopi Goldberg, she's backing this comedian.
That's what we do. We tell stories and then we embellish them. If you're going to hold a comic to the point where you're going to check up on their stories, you have to understand a lot of it is not the exact thing that happened, because why would we tell exactly what happened? It ain't that interesting.
Whoopi Goldberg is a bloated fart bag.
With no eyebrows.
Oh, man, that might be my new favorite insult.
Whoopi Goldberg is a bloated fart bag.
And I don't like to play that game sometimes. People call name calling and all that. Because I quit doing that, gosh, when I was like, I don't know, 50, 51 years old.
You never quit.
I love that. Bloated fart bag. That is, man. And I don't like talking about that stuff.
Wait, is that a play off of her name being Whoopi? Like a whoopee cushion?
Hannah, I'm giving you some points.
Do you think that was intentional, or do you think it was just a coincidence?
Off the text, 874-9390. I'm a woman, and I forget birthdays and our anniversary all the time.
Wah, wah.
Thank you for the backing. And if you can, text us back with your name. That would be really cool, too. Tracy says, Brandon, you have a smartphone? Calendars? Reminders? You forgot your grandson's birthday? Wow.
Man.
Harsh. Tracy's almost as harsh as you are, Hannah. No,
Tough crowd this morning.
She did include an LOL.
That changes it completely.
That's I forgot. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that forgets important stuff like that. And I have it. Here's some more insight into how unthinking I can be, because I have two big problems, Hannah. Number one, I overthink things.
And number two, you underthink things.
My dad, a couple years ago, he gave me a we've
doesn't.
We've had an hour to work on this. We started this at 6:10.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
Marsh, you've had an hour to work on this. Can you figure it out?
I don't know. How about we have a little longer time?
Nailed it.
I have no idea. So we got to bring in Raven Harrison, ravenharrison.com. Raven, let me play it for you one more time.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
Do you have any inkling as to what the president of the greatest country on earth is saying?
I do, because thankfully I've learned how to speak Bidenese. It's something in the vein of I am completely ridiculous.
Very good.
And that's why she's here on the show. You wake up, you're a wife, you have kids, you homeschool your kids, so you have real life concerns. It's not just that you come on Wake Up Mid-Missouri and people seek your opinions
Correct.
from all across the country and you do stuff with Fox, but you wake up as a mom. What's number one? What's front and center for you as a mom this morning?
Well, it's always God, and I know that sounds really, people don't understand that, but when you understand that you have that first, everything else falls in line. But my priority is really just kind of assessing the day and living each day to what is you can make to your advantage. I mean, it's tough. I have a schedule. It's difficult. I'm traveling right now. My birthday is tomorrow, so we're trying to pack in, but we turn everything into a learning lesson. If I have to be in Little Rock, the kids are diamond mining in Little Rock. They're finding out what's out here in America. So we turn the time that we travel into education.
How old are you going to be tomorrow?
Branden.
I am going to. I tell people I'm not getting older. I'm leveling up. So I will be 50 for a milestone birthday tomorrow.
Well, welcome into the 50 Plus Club. I was at a birthday party for a dog over the weekend and was meeting some new people, and I asked this woman, I said, well, how old are you? And I got the reaction I just got from Hannah, Raven. Is it, let me ask.
I don't actually mind. I tell people I'm not getting older, I'm leveling up, so now I'm level 50, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. My 20s were hard. I wouldn't go back to 18 if you paid me. So I really like where I am at this point in life.
I would not ever want to go back to my teens. That's for sure. Let me ask you this. We'll step aside from politics for a minute, if that's cool with you. Do you think it's rude for a dude to ask a chick how old she is?
Well, I think that it's really interesting. I think it highlights a double standard because I hear women, how much money do you make? How tall are you? I feel like if you're going to ask those qualifiers, it should go both ways. But yet, if you ask her how old she is or how much she makes, then you're gonna have to duck. But I don't think there's any problem with it. I guess it depends on who you are. My mom was always fiercely private of that information. My dad wears it like a badge of honor. Yeah. I'm 80.
While we're getting opinions outside of the political realm, is it wrong for a dude to refer to a female as a chick?
Well, to me, I just operate under the doctrine of it's not what they call you, it's what you respond to. So that's where I kind of live, of going, it's really hard to offend me when you have that principle of just going, it's what I respond to.
By the way, you talk about it's hard to offend you, and that's one of the things that we love about Raven Harrison, ravenharrison.com. We're going to be featuring audio 1 hour from now, Raven, this mayor in a western city, progressive mayor. She called 911, and we rave about our frontline responders, 911 operators. They're at the top of the tier when it comes to frontline responders. She called 911 because somebody had a differing viewpoint than her at a Walmart in Yakima, Washington. If you get a chance, I know you're vacation, but if you get a chance, you got to get that KWOS app or the 93.9, the Eagle app, and listen to this phone call coming up a little bit after 8 o'clock. Okay, so there's the sky is falling in Washington, D.C. There's Department of Justice weaponization hearings today. Biden impeachment hearings begin next week. Potential government shutdown. I think, my opinion, I want to get your thoughts. I think the bigger issue right now is Republicans have a chance to do something with a very thin majority in the House, and I feel like they're pooching the kick, man.
Well, they are, and what it's really important is to remind patriots this is the time when people ask, what can I do? What difference does it make? This is the difference, and I'll show you, because we just had this in Texas. They tried to impeach the attorney general with no evidence. But here's what we did. We made sure that trial was video so that we could all see. If we had all not been able to see the ridiculousness of this, Ken Paxton would not have been acquitted. So the important thing is to keep the lights on and keep pressing your elected officials. If you don't require them to do things, they won't do it. Look at it like your children. If I just gave them a mandate to clean their room every week, we would be having a different discussion. I have to stay on them to actually do it, to do what they know that they're supposed to do. And politicians are the same way. If you allow them to sneak out the back doors, and they will, this is the time to make sure they hold Biden accountable, make sure they hold the line, make sure they understand that there is no tomorrow for election if you don't go and do what you were elected to do today.
Yeah, and I think one of the more entertaining things has been the doublespeak from Pelosi a couple of years ago. Impeachment is an important part of the American process and now she's just horrified at the idea of an impeachment. And I want to remind folks, you're listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 7:14, you're heading into work, and you might have a Democrat friend, there's no evidence against Joe Biden. There's no evidence even for an impeachment. I want you to repeat word for word what House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says here.
Remember what impeachment inquiry is. It empowers Congress and a legal ability to get the information we need. That's going to be bank statements, that's going to be credit card statements, that's going to be family members coming in and answering the questions so the American public can know.
Oh, two things. There is evidence. That's why we're at this point. And then the
Correct.
other thing is the House Speaker just said, Raven, is that's why we do this, to get more evidence. And they don't understand. The Democrats and MSNBCs and CNNs, they don't understand that.
And we're literally right now sitting on evidence Everest, with Joe Biden. There is so much evidence, that we're going to have to dig a new landfill hole. And also to remember that this is the same Pelosi who rammed through the impeachment of President Trump without going through Congress, without a vote. She unilaterally pushed that forward on her own. So, her horror is ridiculous and completely false. But we are sitting on more evidence for Joe Biden right now while we are pretending to look the other way. This is a slow walk technique that the Republicans use to make it look like they're acting when they're actually not. So this is the thing, is we don't want your inquiries. We don't want your speeches. We want to see perp walk. 2024.
And this, by the way, and all this stuff you're listening right now, it's important because you have allegations, very credible allegations, and a lot of what looks to me, at least, somebody with a barstool knowledge of politics, looks like very credible evidence. Joe Biden, the guy who's the president when he was vice president, was using his family name. He was taking copious amounts of money from countries through his son, from countries that want to hurt us. Our guest this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Raven Harrison, ravenharrison.com.
Raven, what do you think of the move by Chuck Schumer to relax the Senate's dress code so John Fetterman can wear his hoodies and his gym shorts?
I'm telling you, he's determined to make sure that Fetterman rocks that convenience store knockover fashion. I mean, I cannot even. And watching him speak and watching Biden speak, it's like I'll take word diarrhea for 1,000, Alex. It is horribly embarrassing how they are making a mockery of such a high institution by parading this guy around. There are two people who need to retire, and those are it. Biden and Fetterman. This is absolutely painful to watch. What I always tell people to be mindful of is he has a chip. Fetterman has a chip installed. Who is typing the information? Who controls that so that he can communicate? I mean, that should scare the heck out of you. Who controls the would-be senator? So we have to start asking these tough questions and stop. I mean, somebody actually came onto my feed and said, "You're picking on a disabled man, Raven." I said, "I'm not picking on anybody. Either he's fit for office and he's fair game, or he's disabled and he shouldn't be there. Which is it?"
Amen. And I think this is another situation, and I'm not talking about Hillary Clinton calling me a name, calling me a deplorable because I supported Donald Trump. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about holding people responsible beyond Fetterman, beyond the president of the United States. We just aired a great interview I did with a local guy the other day at a Mizzou football game, Raven, of this guy who came up, said, "I love your guys' show. I'm a Democrat. I voted for Biden, and I regret the hell out of it." We interviewed him. We played his interview on the show, and he talked about, and the dude's in his 60s. He's not a young guy either. And he explained. So,
welcome.
And I wonder, we talk about holding parents responsible for when your kid comes and tells you at the age of 8 something really crazy. That's where you as a parent say, "Hey, I know you think this, but you're a kid, you're 8, and you don't know anything, so let's wait on that." I wonder, is there a way, and I'm not talking about going after voters, but holding voters responsible that elect Fettermans, people that elect a Biden. Like, we should be holding them responsible. I don't know how we do that. Is that too harsh?
Well, it's not harsh. It's just qualifying and then being willing to embrace, like this gentleman at the football game. You know, when these people come to you, you win more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So I feel like not shaming them, those who took the shot and are struggling, and those who voted for Biden. They just didn't. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow when you realize that you've been lied to by your media and your government. So we should be welcoming them and embracing what we can do together instead of just going, hey, you guys voted for, we get it. But now, is the time we can get this right. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
And I'm big on messaging. I have for a long time. I joke with my pachyderm friends on Fridays. I go to a pachyderm meeting, and for several years, Raven, I'm 52 now, so even in my late 40s, I was the youngest guy going to these meetings. And I said, we got to get younger people involved. We do. Yeah, and we're seeing some of that now, and I think it's important. And here's what I think. It's important to tell facts and ask questions like the McCarthy thing, or ask, do you think it's okay when you have states like Washington, for example, you can't get a tattoo until you're 18, but under the age of 18, without parental permission, you can go and have your gender changed through surgery. And ask these people, does that make sense to you? If somebody can get a tattoo, they can't get a tattoo until 18, but yet gender reassignment surgery, there's nothing to it. Raven Harrison.
You got that right.
Yeah, and I think if we ask these progressives these questions in a polite way, like, does that make sense to you, number one, and is it okay? Got to do it politely. RavenHarrison.com. We're going to let you get back to your vacation. And also, listener Tracy is having a birthday today, so she wanted to wish you a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tracy.
Right. And I asked her how old she was, and guess what her response was? She answered the question.
None of your business.
She answered the question. Raven, we love you. We'll see you next time. See you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Coming up, 7:25-ish, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah.
Now, how on earth did we lose this?
How did we lose this? Going to find out. It's coming up. It's What's Hot with Ish, which means it's
I am happy to report that it's actually 7:25 today. Good job.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
I think we might have missed this story last week. But did you see what the U.S. Air Force misplaced? They lost it for a couple days.
Here's what I really loved about this story on Monday. This went down over the weekend, but the story, the headline, several national news outlets on Monday was federal government seeking help in trying to locate a missing F-35. This is a multi-million-dollar airplane, man.
Which is a jet, if you're not familiar with your, jet names. The Air Force had a pilot who had to pull the ejector lever, which seems kind of fun, honestly.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, but there was a pilot who had to use the ejector seat on this F-35, and after that, they didn't really know what happened to the jet. So
what happened?
They had to send out like an APB on this jet in South Carolina. They had the spot where the pilot ejected narrowed down, but after that, no idea where the jet went. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the search for that submarine that had, from the Titanic wreckage site. Luckily, there was no one aboard this, but they finally found the debris field on, let's see, was that Monday? Yeah, on Monday, they finally found it. But I just want to know, how did the United States Air Force...
It was a Marine Corps, but fact check.
Oh, okay. Thank you, John. How did the Marine Corps misplace an entire jet? How does that happen? How do you just not know where that's at?
Well, and the thing is with the F-35, that's the cutting-edge Joint Strike Fighter, and they build a lot of stealth into it.
Well,
so
maybe too much.
Couldn't be seen on radar. And they said it was an autopilot when he ejected.
Well,
so it kept going. It went like 60 miles from the scene of the ejection.
So maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but it just seems funny that I can download an app called Find My iPhone and be able to locate my iPhone anywhere.
Well, actually, I just looked, Hannah. There is an app called Find My F-35.
Oh, okay.
It is.
But yet the military can't find one of their fancy airplanes.
Yeah, but you don't have a stealth iPhone either, so,
I guess that's true.
And if you lose your iPhone, how do you use the app to find your iPhone?
You can use it on a different Apple device. You can log in.
I was at the Welcome Home picnic the other night. Welcome Home, great organization in mid-Missouri. They do a lot of incredible things for veterans, and it's not just they help them. They don't just give them 3 hots and a cot or help. They like give you skills and say, okay, how did you get into this predicament in the first place? Okay, let's give you the tools so that you don't get there again. I admire the work they do. And anyhow, at the picnic, good friend of mine, he's a retired Marine, and he was chatting with the dude. So only military dudes can do this. I'm just relating a story. I'm not picking on any branch of the military. Do you see all the military ears in mid-Missouri go, go on, Brandon.
Be careful, Nathan Roberts is listening.
Yeah. But it was a Marine talking to a Navy veteran at the Welcome Home picnic, and he asked the dude wearing the Navy hat. He said, hey, I was in the Marines. God bless you for your service and all that. And he says, do you know how Marines spell Uber? And the guy said, how? He said, Navy.
Yeah, Nathan's giving me some grief on the texter. It's like, come on, Hannah. It wasn't one of ours. It was a Marine F-35. Sorry to the Air Force.
Come on, Hannah. She's getting married shortly. Halloween.
facing money challenges during wedding planning, and 54% of engaged Americans don't agree with their partner on financial goals.
Guess who's getting married here real soon? Halftime of the Black Friday Mizzou Arkansas game.
Houseworth?
50 Houseworth is getting married
in Fayetteville.
We probably shouldn't start that rumor.
No, Hannah's getting there, and it's getting to be crunch
Bling.
time. And if you're watching the show, you can see that spectacular rock that her fiance got for her a while ago. So let me ask you about so that's from Gordon Deal. Gordon Deal is here on the radio station 4 o'clock every morning. And it's really, I know it's early in the morning, but like if you're up, it's really good. It really is like, here's the news and, here's some lighter stuff. Here's some financial stuff. Here's how it really is.
It reminds me a lot of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Look at Hannah. That's producer Hannah. There's John Marsh. I am Branden Rathert. Stephanie Bell back on Monday. So do you, and if I'm being too personal, tell me, but remember, I've got experience at being married. As a matter of fact, I've got twice as much experience as a lot of people at being married. Because Stephanie's been married once, John's been married once, so I've got twice as much experience.
I don't know if that's how that math tracks.
So anyhow, are you guys in agreement on the finance thing?
Yeah,
mostly. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
We have the same goals. Obviously we want to buy a house.
Sure.
Hopefully next year. Now we're having to shop for a car, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And then what about, he said 70% of engaged couples, and I kind of tie this into right direction, wrong track. The polling says we head in the right direction, wrong track as a country, and the overwhelming number of Americans that are saying, yeah, we're not going in the right direction. I tie that into the collective mood of the country. The country needs some Prozac right now. That's where we are. Do you guys have some fear under the current economic climate going into this thing? It's a beautiful new chapter in your life. You're 23. Yeah. What's that like?
Well, I mean, I said we're shopping for even just a used car right now. Yeah. Interest rates are crazy. Obviously, the housing market's not great. And that's a big goal of ours that we're trying to accomplish sooner rather than later. We've had conversations about, how do we afford to start a family, in the next few years? So, I mean, we look at our budget with just the two of us, and it's like, how do you afford daycare? How do you afford diapers? All those expenses that come with it. It's hard to imagine where you find room in the very tight budget for that because everything is so expensive.
And it's and the thing is, and those are all those are real things. But here's the thing that we try to get at here on the show. It's affecting your mental health. Yeah. I mean, not to the point that you're like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to go and, do some really crazy stuff. But when we are worrying about these things, when we're worried about, okay, am I going to have to use a credit card to buy groceries? Am I going to have to pay interest on some chicken nuggets? I'm going to have to defer the payment on a bag of chicken nuggets from Sam's Club. And then I'm going to have to pay interest on that bag of chicken nuggets for the kids because Bidenomics. And that affects people. And okay, I'm going to the pump. I'm driving down the road. Okay, what did gas prices go up to this morning? And I really believe...
Well, especially since I commute.
Yeah.
That's a good
These
point.
things add up, and we get... I mean, seriously, one of my stressors had been for a long time. Like, okay, retirement now. Like, and it's a real thing, not like something I think about once in a while. I go, I think, okay, what can I do? And then I'm confronted with the reality that under the current state of economic affairs, there's not a whole lot that I can do. And you know what? That don't make me feel so good. I don't come into work all smiling and bouncing and going, hey, Hannah, how are you this morning? It's good to see you. It affects my mental well-being, and I think it affects the mental well-being of other people.
It's a little bleak.
And I think Hannah brought up something very powerful there, and I hope younger people are listening to what she said, but she mentioned her and her husband to be, it'll take two incomes just to pay the bills, and then there's very little money left over. I contrast that for those of us a little bit older, whether it was Jimmy Carter, Gerald Ford, one was a Democrat, one was a Republican. Yes, there was inflation in the 70s. People were working in the 70s. But the big difference in those days, and those of us around will remember, you could make, especially a union worker like my dad, you could make a good living and the mom could stay at home. Not all mothers stayed at home, but many of them, at least in my neighborhood, most of them did. Now, both parents have to work just to make ends meet, and it's still very, very tough. So the cost of living is just, and these prices are just, to get anything is just really up.
It really is. Like, I'm shocked every time I look at the price of ground beef. I'm like, my gosh, you got to be kidding me. These are things. Congressman Mark Alford, he's joining us 8:35 this morning. He was kind of a last-minute addition to the lineup because what is happening in D.C. with Department of Justice weaponization hearings today, the impeachment hearing, which starts next week, government shutdown, and there's some important things that are going to hit you, man. Mark Alford's here at 8:35. Make sure you tell your friends, hey, you got to tune in to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Congressman Mark Alford is going to be there. Ricky, we're liking Ricky to call in. He's been married 4 times. I think he would have some abundant advice since he's done this. He's done it twice. He's got twice as much experience as I do at being married. But what about this, Hannah, as you get ready to embark on the next chapter in your life when you get married? This from the vice president.
I've heard young leaders talk with me about a term they've coined called climate anxiety, which is fear of the future and the unknown, of whether it makes sense for you to even think about having children, whether it makes sense for you to think about aspiring to buy a home, because what will this climate be?
So Kamala is So are you and your fiance, is climate change scaring you?
No, I don't give a rip about that. Put some more money back in my account, Vice President.
The Vice President is so full of crap. Excuse the language, kids. She's right. Yeah, people are, because Hannah just told us, right? Yeah, I do have fears about buying a home and affording daycare. I do have some fears. But my goodness, Kamala, it's not because of climate change. So you guys don't have any fears. You're not going, hey, honey, climate change, maybe we shouldn't get married. It's raining today. It was almost 90 yesterday. Climate change. Let's cancel the wedding.
I mean, unless she's talking about the economic climate, I think she's really out of touch.
Points.
I don't know exactly what that soundbite was. Pretty powerful, because clearly she's not on the same page as the president and the White House press secretary, because they definitely are sounding a more positive tone. But the vice president sounds at least what I heard there sounds similar to, Brandon, what you've been saying on the show about the concerns of,
except it's not about climate change.
Yeah, and I wonder, but based on the context, I assume she's talking about the climate of but maybe she is talking about
climate change.
She is talking about climate change.
It's a conversation about climate change. And
and they're worried if they can have kids because of that. That's okay. So I was under the impression.
No. And she's had this conversation before. She's told us this before. She's right, and I think that's old bait and switch. That's gaslighting. She's right. People are freaking out. Look at producer Hannah this morning. She's embarking on life. But to say it's because of climate change, my gosh.
Well, in New York, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, I saw the video, and there were, I don't know how many thousands, but a lot of young people, and they were on the television, and some of them were critical of this administration. They didn't like the Republicans. They don't like the oil companies. But I remember one of them on television saying, we won't take no for an answer. So they're talking about greenhouse emissions and stuff. So there are younger people that feel that that is a...
Well, they feel that way because they're scared, because they pay attention to these national news outlets, and they pay attention to the president and other progressives, and they get scared because they're saying, man, the planet's going to end tomorrow unless you buy an electric vehicle. They're scaring these people, and it's real. They're scaring people about climate change.
The TV show Undercover Boss?
Yes.
Where CEOs of gigantic companies or giant chain restaurants, they wear a disguise and they go undercover in their own companies. And a lot of times their eyes are opened to changes that need to be made, or, just kind of get that perspective of their day-to-day employees. That's what our higher power politicians need to do. They need to go undercover, spend a day with the average American, and see what we really care about.
When you have a president that has a 67 Stingray Corvette as a storage closet for classified documents, who makes just salary as a president maybe $500,000 a year, who was paid by countries like China millions and millions of dollars, when you're Joe Biden, you have that kind of money. You don't understand the struggles of a Brian Houseworth or a John Marsh or a producer Hannah. You don't understand that. And to come out and say, oh, everything's fine. Janet Yellen yesterday, U.S. Treasury Secretary, we're keeping an eye on the gas prices for you. These people are insane. David text 874-9390. He says, 17 months until I get to retire.
Wow.
How about that? And
That's
then you know
awesome.
what he's going to do when he retires? Find another job.
And go live on a glacier.
Yeah, and the inflation does affect, and even if you try to invest the money in a CD or whatever, the little amount people can come up with, inflation could clip that too. So you have to watch that.
And here's what Jim says his biggest fear is. It's Kamala. That's what he fears the most.
No, specifically President Kamala.
President Kamala. That's an incredibly big fear. Coming up. That would be all except for this. John's going to try to send us into work with a little bit of a laugh before you listen online at KWOS.com or 939theeagle.com. You going to make us laugh, John?
Yes.
What do you got?
Or we'll try. With a bat to the bone.
Bat to the bone. Summoning George Thorogood, but it's bat.
The Dow down 106 points, the S&P off by 9, the NASDAQ lower by 32.
I'll take a peek at your futures. Coming up at 8:25, be monitoring the stock market for you in the Morning Bell. Morning Bell business news with a little twist. One of the things that we are covering this morning, when your Bidenomics side hustle is illegal and goes sideways.
And that would be all, except for this.
German officials seized cooked bats and nearly a ton of unrefrigerated fish after police stopped a van that entered the country from Belgium. They say federal police stopped the vehicle at an exit at the border city of Aachen and found the bats under the fish. A 31-year-old driver, an African from Ivory Coast, faced criminal charges and unauthorized entry because he didn't have a driver's license. The court ordered the guy held pending his hand over to Italian authorities, where apparently he was living. Turns out at least 55 species of bats are hunted in Africa, and 100,000 of them are sold at the meat market in Ghana. Larger fruit bats prepared with hot chilies are considered a delicacy, which prompts the question, what is a vampire bat's favorite fruit? Anyone?
A blood orange?
That's very good. But we were going for nectarine.
Oh.
You guys both, man, between
blood orange is pretty good.
You, John, and Hannah, you guys are hilarious.
You know, eating...
We found the bats, and she lost the F-35, so it all works out in the mix.
Now, eating bats does not sound appetizing at all. Is there even very much meat on them?
I wouldn't think there's...
This also sounds like another way to get a super virus, like
no
another
kidding.
Global pandemic.
Didn't that start a government pandemic several years ago because people were eating bats
in Wuhan, right?
Wombats and things like that. It didn't come from
Wombats.
a lab. Yeah, haven't you ever heard of a wombat?
Yeah, but they're very different from actual bats.
Right.
Right, but still I would think weird to eat. It'd be like eating an armadillo.
Or a baseball bat.
By the way, there's a story in the Post-Dispatch this morning. University City, outside of St. Louis, there was a seafood city market. Thousands of pounds of seafood has been rotting away in freezers that have been without electricity for months.
Nope.
But that's fragrant.
Even outside. Now, why is it people will go to St. Louis and go to the jewel box or whatever, the big flower thing they do there, to go smell the rotting corpse flower? They'll line up like they're catching Bon Jovi concert tickets, 1987, Slippery When Wet. But this seafood market, there's rotting fish and shrimp that's been there for months.
Oh.
People are shying away from that. Those are the kinds of things. That didn't make sense to me. A team of workers is now donning hazmat suits.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Thousands of pounds of seafood been rotting away in freezers, been without electricity for months. Even outside, the stench can knock you flat. This is on Olive Boulevard. It's a mega store. It's been closed. The building condemned 6 months ago, late March. Right about that time, we had the big hailstorm come through here. Inspectors with the St. Louis County Department of Health found then that the store had been open and selling seafood despite orders to close it for health violations. That is insane. It's crazy. Anything else? And that would be all except for this, John?
I guess the guy involved in St. Louis is the guy who fled to Belgium and drove into Germany.
So John's sending us into work with something, give us a little giggle. And when you get into work, make sure you can listen online. I don't know if you know this or not. It's real easy to do. You put in your little earbuds and you get on to 93.9theeagle.com. You get on to kwos.com, and right on the front page, big old red button says listen live. You click that, boom, you're in. And then these apps, Hannah has reworked the apps, and these are, what's your favorite feature of the new apps?
I like that when we're streaming live on our YouTube channel or the Wake Up Facebook page, it shows it on the home screen of the app. So you just have to open the app and there's the video feed. It's right there.
Yeah, it's real easy. Even at 52, I'm able to figure it. I had to get a new phone, download the new apps because my other phone was 7 years old. But the apps are really, it's cool and convenient.
You know who could use some technical advice this morning?
Who's that?
Donald Trump Jr. It appears that his Twitter account was hacked this morning. He has 10.4 million followers, and there's just tweet after tweet of him saying egregious things, and I'm willing to bet that he got hacked. There's a tweet that says, I regret to inform you that my father has passed away, and much worse ones that I can't say on the radio.
Oh, gosh.
So, poor Donald Trump Jr.
Oh, man.
Good luck getting your 10.4 million followers back, buddy.
By the way, I think we've upset a listener. Casey texts in.
Oh, just one? That's a good day.
Yeah, that is a good day.
Casey says, please never say Kamala and president in the same sentence again. You gave this 53-year-old man a heart attack.
Sorry, Casey.
Shay. All right, stay with us, brother. We'll get you back. Oh, also want to make sure you go into work with this. Whoopi Goldberg, Kennedy on Fox yesterday. Whoopi Goldberg's defending a comedian, but it's Kennedy's description of Whoopi Goldberg.
To the point where you're going to check up on their stories. You have to understand, a lot of it is not the exact thing that happened, because why would we tell exactly what happened? It ain't that interesting.
Whoopi Goldberg is a bloated fart bag.
874-9390. We are in the 573 area code, 874-9390. This is the president.
Let me be clear. Now, it has to involve our institution.
John, 3 hours. I still no idea, man. You got anything?
I thought it was Ozzie Smith earlier. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe Lou Brock.
Let me be clear. Now, it has to involve our institution.
Ozzy Osbourne?
Let me be clear. Now, it has to involve our institution.
Well, we are on the crazy train, so.
The appropriate.
And I love and let me be clear.
Let me be clear. Now, it has to involve our institution.
I don't know what he's saying. Well, as a matter of fact, I think we're just going to preempt the Gary Nolan show today. He's supposed to come on at 9, but, man, it might be 10:30 because we're going to stay here until we get this figured out. Welcome into the show. There's a lot of things happening in Washington, D.C. today. We've asked Congressman Mark Alford to join us at 8:35. That's how important this is. And maybe if you listen to the show, we kind of, 8:35 and beyond, we try to, talk about things other than politics. We love hanging out with y'all, and I guess you like hanging out with us because you're listening right now, and thank you. We do appreciate that. But then we kind of, we turn the page and get on to other things because although politics is affecting what is happening in your life and my life today, there's other things happening too. But this is important. So we're having Mark Alford hear what he has to say coming up at 8:35. And I love this. People like Dennis texting, driving home to mid-Missouri from Florida this morning. We were just talking about the app that Hannah redesigned. And it's people like Dennis says, thanks for starting my day off on a positive note. You all are always informative and entertaining. Signed, Dennis. I'm guessing he's listening on the new app. Really easy to download. So here's what's happening in D.C. today. Weaponization of the Department of Justice. Merrick Garland, Attorney General, going to be talking about this. And this is important. Listen, I keep going back to this raid of that Marion County newspaper in Kansas because people here think, oh, the Department of Justice, they're not going to go after me. It's not about the Department of Justice. It's about people in power going after you. It's about law enforcement. And that's what happened to that newspaper in Kansas. You had a
First Amendment, folks.
That's right. It's real simple. It's number one on the list. It is number one. As a matter of fact, we're going to hear from a mayor who also does not understand the First Amendment. We've got the governor of New Mexico does not understand the Second Amendment. And because of Missouri versus Biden, we have a president that does not understand the very First Amendment. And we have a mayor in a western city who does not understand the First Amendment to the point she called 911, man. I'm anxious to hear this. She was so triggered. She called first responders at 911. Man, there's somebody here with a differing point of view. It's great. So that's why that matters. It's not just about, Department of Justice going after people like Trump. It's like people that can go after you. Small town. I mean, in this Marion County newspaper, the entire county, Marion County, Kansas, not even 12,000 people, maybe the size of Fulton, man. And that's what happens. The other thing that's happening in D.C., getting ready for the Joe Biden impeachment. That's going to start next week. And then we've got Hunter Biden. He's going to plead not guilty to gun charges. That's going to be in Delaware. So there are a lot of impactful things.
Maybe he'll be able to use the Fifth Amendment.
Maybe. They'll understand that one, won't they? All of a sudden they believe. Listen, you're right, John. They get on the stand. All of a sudden, these progressives, all of a sudden, they believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in the First Amendment. That's what our country is founded on. I mean, it's the Constitution of the United States of America. They don't understand the First Amendment, Missouri versus Biden. Biden going and trying to tell Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk what they should and should not be printing on their social media outlets. Governor of New Mexico I'm canceling the Second Amendment. They love that cancel culture, don't they? To the point now, they're just canceling amendments to the Constitution. That's the framework this house was built on, man. These people, doesn't anybody question these people? Like, really? Are you that stupid? I don't like to use words like stupid when I'm talking about our friends who are politically opposed to common sense. But my goodness, I don't know what else to say. But has anybody said, are you a moron? Are you just pretending? Like, as governor, you're just going to rescind the Second Amendment? Are you stupid? Are you ignorant? Or are you a moron? And I'm not saying you are. I'm just asking. the question.
I'm not saying you are, but I am saying you're one of the three. So
I think so. And maybe Hunter Biden is maybe going to square in on the Sixth Amendment as well.
That's right. Then they get up on the stand because they're being prosecuted for taking money from countries that want to hurt us when Joe was president, our vice president. And then all of a sudden, but I believe in the Fifth Amendment. Oh, man. And we're getting some text on people are offering suggestions on.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
I think John's is my favorite. Listener John texted in at 874-9390. He said that he thinks Biden is saying, let me be clear, I belong in an institution.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
I can kind of hear it. I can hear it.
I think he figured it out.
Kat is saying, sounds like Biden is saying something about the Obama institution.
Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
Maybe it's a stretch here. Maybe he's talking about I honor the Constitution.
Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
I honor our Constitution?
I still think we need to get the expert at translating Bidenese.
We should do that. We should get Brian Hansen, star of the Gary Nolan Show, which is going to be preempted until we figure out exactly what he is saying. Here, Gary Nolan normally comes on at 9, but we're going to stay here until we figure this out. Okay, 911 phone call. And here's the other thing. These progressives, we can disagree on things socially and politically, and that's fine. We disagree. Even if you and I agree on stuff, John, there's probably some things that we disagree on. But my goodness, we don't get soft.
We don't call 911.
I don't call 911. Mayor of Yakima, Washington. Her name is Janice Deschio. She's calling 911. Here's why.
Hi, this is Mayor Deschio, and I have had some constituents call me to tell me about some right-wing petitioners over at Walmart, and that Walmart does not want them on their property, and the police have come out and told them that they can't do anything about it. And I'm wondering, how can that be? If petitioners were on my yard, the police could take them out.
So, and I go back to the question, are you dumb, are you an idiot, or are you a moron? I'm not saying you are, I'm just asking, because you're calling 911, and in a part of the phone call we didn't air, she even says, this is not an emergency, but don't you know who I am? I'm the mayor of Yakima, Washington. There's some right-wing people doing petitions outside of Walmart. Cops show up, said there's nothing we can do. This is a constitutional right. This woman was elected by these people to be the mayor of Yakima, Washington. She didn't get it. And then she wants to know, after they tell her, no, there's nothing we can do. She's tying up a 911 line. Okay, and that's why I would ask her at that point, I would say, Mayor Deschio, are you an idiot? Are you a moron? Are you just stupid? You're tying up a 911 line by saying, well, how is it that the cops, well, the Constitution. That's why. She is now saying, I admit that I was unaware of all of the nuances of the law at the time. Who wrote this for her? She's not smart enough to write something like that because that's some good spin. I admit I was unaware of all of the nuances is what she is saying is I don't understand the Constitution. All right. We've brought in the star of the Gary Nolan Show. Brian Hansen is here.
The one and only.
Good morning. How are you?
Remember a couple of months ago, we brought you in to try to...
I do, yeah.
Turner Dash, double the pressure. We were taking certain things that the President of the United States was telling us. We were trying to interpret.
What? True international effort to pressure. Donald Trump does pose an excellent threat to this. It's a right for people to have bad health care.
And I think the only one that we successfully deciphered was the very last one.
For people to have bad health care.
He says it's a right for people to have bad care. That is a Greek dessert that you can find at places like Eris's in Jefferson. So you go and say, yeah, can I get the bad care?
Yes.
Delicious. How's the bad care here?
Hold the pistachios, Brian.
I'll give a restaurant $5 if they put like a Batakefcare on the menu. How cool would that be? Yeah, I'll have the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Batakefcare special. I hear it's delicious.
It's got a bunch of nuts in it.
Okay, Brian Hansen, we call on you again, and I'm going to include the part where Joe Biden says, let me be clear.
Okay, good.
All right, here you go.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution.
One more time.
Let me be clear. Now, it doesn't involve our institution. Now, it has to involve our institution.
You got the best. You're the best listener of anybody I know.
Can you play it one more time? I
wasn't listening.
No, I was listening intently.
Now, it has to involve our institution. Now, it has to involve our institution.
Here's what I think.
Okay, I know what he's saying.
Here's what I think he's saying. I think he's saying.
Now, it has to involve our institution.
I respect our Constitution. That's what I think he's saying.
I think he said that institution.
Nailed it.
Marsh, what did you come up with?
Well, initially we thought he was saying something about Ozzie Smith and the Constitution.
Yeah.
I still like John's. Listener John's. Says, let me be clear. I belong in an institution.
I think he's right. We'll give it up for John this morning. And yeah. Nothing doing, Hans.
No, it has to involve our institution.
I like the Obama line was kind of growing on me a little.
Yeah.
Now, it has to involve our institution.
Obama or institution. Man, I love that. That dude's your president of the United States, and your bank account is being drained, and you're paying a lot for gas prices and the collective mood of America. Man, that sounds really abysmal right now, doesn't it?
Happy Wednesday.
Oh, good morning,
Jazz
everybody.
Hands.
All right, coming up, Brian, we appreciate...
Not a problem. Thanks for having me. Sorry I couldn't help you with your Bidenese today.
We'll try next time. There will be more. And on a serious note, there are some serious things going down in D.C. today. Government shutdown. Like the first question, I think, for Congressman Mark Alford is what's happening. I think there's a prime opportunity for the way I see it, Republicans just squandering an opportunity they're showing. They cannot work together. Same thing we say about the Democrats that are going and calling for Joe Biden to be primary, man. What a mess. Coming up, Morning Bell Business News, little twist. So everything on the stock market down a little bit yesterday. We'll look at futures here in just a few minutes. And when you're, man, it all goes back to Joe this morning. Not the intent, but that's life. That's the reality. When your Bidenomics side hustle goes sideways because it's illegal. Good morning, 8:25. Time for the Morning Bell business news with the little twist here this morning. After everything closing down slightly yesterday, futures slightly in the green this morning. By the way, before we get into the Morning Bell here, this is about when your side hustle goes sideways during Bidenomics because it's illegal. We might have an explanation for what Joe Biden said.
Now, it has to involve our institution.
One of our listeners says, I realize, this is from Charles, I realize the following institutions.
Now, it has to involve our institution. Now, it has to involve our institution.
I realize the following institutions. Roger brings up a good point, too. So as UN, they got all these interpreters and stuff. John, how on earth does an interpreter take this?
Now, it has to involve our institution.
Or somebody doing sign language. You know, they've always got the people doing sign language. Somebody who is doing sign language when the president of the United States says this.
Now, it has to involve our institution.
How does that look in sign language? How does that come out? Minnesota woman busted. She was on Bidenomics, so she's got a side hustle going on her Facebook page. Man, she's raking it in to $117,000. That's not a side hustle. That's a main source of income. But what she was doing. She made at least $117,000 by running an illegal lottery on Facebook. It resembled Powerball. She tried to disguise her attempts to continue it after the police said, hey, listen, her name's Catherine. Hey, Kathy, this is illegal. He's like, okay. She kept doing it, tried to hide it. She failed. Investigators said Catherine DeBlack deceived over 200 people into thinking their entry fees were going to charity. Participants bought numbered spots to win brand new items for less, with winners chosen by a random number generator. She was urging participants to avoid any language suggesting their activities were related to gambling. The lottery reported that she was involved in illegal raffles on a Facebook page named Iron Range Puzzles. After being informed by an investigator that her raffles were illegal, she confidently defended herself by stating that the prizes were donated to Operation 120, a reputable nonprofit organization. So the police, they do their due diligence. They call Operation 120. Said, hey, Kathy here is running this thing on Facebook, says the money's going to you. I said, yeah. She gave us some money one time a while ago. So she's busted. Less than 4 hours before she sent an email to investigators trying to clear up the story that she had been trying to tell folks. She set up another private Man, she's really into her side hustle here. Suffice it to say, none of it worked out. And I was looking at the history because one of the I think Powerball is huge again, drawing for tonight. One of the things that I have learned already, it's not even 9 o'clock yet. Congressman Mark Alford is going to be joining us at 8:35, talking about craziness that is unfolding today in D.C. We've got the Biden stuff coming up next Thursday, the impeachment. We've got a potential government shutdown. We've got folks in Congress fighting. Mark Alford is going to tell us what he can coming up at 8:35. But America's earliest settlers apparently brought the lottery with them in 1612. The Virginia Company of London was authorized by King James I to run a lottery to help finance ships to the Jamestown colony in Virginia. By the 1670s, gambling was a well-established feature and an irritant of New England life, despite Puritans viewing gambling as a dishonor to God and a door and a window to worse sins. I said, well, we can make money, which a lot of people do. I know this is wrong, but you know what? I can make some money, man. So that's a little bit of the history of the lottery. A couple of things coming up here. Congressman Jason Smith, our third U.S. Senator, he's going to be joining us on the show on Friday because, again, there's the magnitude of what is happening in D.C. It's pretty remarkable right now, so he's going to be here tomorrow. Tony Lupo, he's a climate scientist.
we will likely have to endure some degree of a shutdown.
That's Congressman from Florida, Matt Gaetz, Congressman, 4th District,
Our
Missouri.
buddy.
Yeah, our buddy made us go viral thanks to him and Billy Long earlier this year. One of the highlights of Wake Up Mid-Missouri this year, our congressman, one of our local congressmen, Mark Alford. Here now, I want to start with this. Do you agree with Mr. Gaetz that there is going to be some degree of a shutdown?
Well, good morning to you, Brandon, and the family there. Look, I certainly hope not. You know, I'm new to all this, but all indications are we're heading for one unless some people can get their heads out and start dealing with integrity on this. We came up, I didn't, but Byron Donalds and Dusty Johnson negotiated a deal for a CR, reduce spending by 8%, a 30-day CR, have the Secure Border Act in there where we're securing the border. It's going to send a message to the Senate that we're serious about doing things on our end. Now, the chances of them passing that as we, volley it over to that side of the Congress is probably slim to none, but at least we've put the ball in their court and we've done something. The problem is there are 5 people in our conference who just don't want to do anything, and they want to send a message that, we're going to shut down the government and it's going to be okay because we're just going to send a message to the American people that we've had it with spending. Look, we've all had it with the government bloated spending in Washington, D.C. So I think we're all on the same page of that. It's just, do you punish a nation to get your point across?
And Congressman, can I ask you to clarify? You said if just we can make this okay if some people get their heads out. Can you complete that sentence? What were you trying to say there, Congressman? Mark Alford.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Look.
I do.
Okay.
I understand, and this is very serious stuff. I think about and we appreciate you talking to your constituents on such short notice this morning. And I think about people like Austin with your office and the hard work, the hoops he jumped through to make this happen. And it's people like him that then would, in effect, they could be affected by a government shutdown. That affects you as you try to talk to your constituents. Our guest this morning, Congressman Mark Alford on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Congressman, it's a pleasure to have you with us. I know there's an effort right now to pass a 30-day funding bill. In that temporary gap, if you will, would have, as I understand it from the Washington Post, would have triggered a 1% cut to the current fiscal levels. I know the Democrats don't like that. From your perspective, have you ever thought about just calling up the White House, inviting the president to your district to talk about this, talk about other stuff? I know you talk about him quite a bit, but have you ever considered that?
To ask the President of the United States to come to our district and talk about his bloated budget?
Well, to talk about it just in general, because I know you've wanted to say to show him, some of the things going on.
You've kind of stumped me on that one. I have turned down several occasions invitations to go to the White House because I don't believe this president is coherent enough to carry on a conversation. I think Kevin McCarthy pretty much said that when he went to negotiate the budget deal after we passed Limit, Save, Grow, there were people in the Oval Office trying to speak for the president, and he finally had to cut him off and says, look, I'm here to talk to the president. Mm-hmm. The president has totally different objectives than Republicans do. It's clear that with the budget that he wants passed, that he presented to us, he wants to increase our debt by another $17 trillion over the next 10 years. That's unsustainable. We're right now, our debt is 125% of our GDP. We cannot continue to operate that way. And so there's some here in this conference drawing a line in the sand and saying enough is enough. I agree enough is enough, but we've got to get 30 days grace period, a little breathing room so we can get these appropriation bills passed so we can pay our military, so we can fund our government. Shutting down the government, here's what's going to happen, because I used to be in the media and we did these stories all the time. Mm-hmm. Number one, it's a partial government shutdown. People are still going to get their Social Security checks and Medicare checks, VA benefits. That's not the issue. The issue is they're going to make it look like it is the most horrible thing in the world here in D.C. They're going to put up gates around all the monuments. They're going to do it with the media, hand in hand, to make it look like the Republicans are the most evil thing on earth. And while some are standing on principle, I'm standing on the fact that we've got to keep our government running while we negotiate these 12 appropriations bills. I think you can do both at one time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Congressman.
Congressman, the UAW president says if something doesn't happen by Friday, they'll suggest more strikes at more plants. We've seen Wentzville go down. Are you worried about the Clay Como plant in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I mean, they build the most popular truck, the most popular vehicle in America right now, and that is the F-150. And I lay this at the feet of Joe Biden. This guy has demonized fossil fuels. He has targeted the fossil fuel industry, but he's put the crosshairs on the backs of the American people. And now the very union workers that he, good old Joe and all of his stories about how much he supports the union, he is not doing it with this. By shoving EVs down the throats of America and making these really unrealistic standards by which the auto industry has to follow and get in line with, I think it's a sellout to the unions. The hardworking men and women, who a lot of them are identifying as conservatives, and I think that it is a sellout to the unions for him shoving down EVs down the throats of Americans. And the United Auto Workers, they're looking 5 and 10 years down the road. All right. And they're saying we may not have the jobs that we have now because it's being pushed to a different format with I don't even call them electric vehicles. I call them battery powered. They're BPs to me because they run off batteries and then recharge with electricity that is generated through coal. So a lot of things in this climate cult, which has overtaken America and this hysteria, is trickling down now, and it's biting the common person in the behind. And I think, Joe Biden's complicit in this.
Yeah, atmospheric scientist Tony Lupo's professor at Mizzou and happens to be a conservative. He's got the honest take on climate change. He's here tomorrow at 6:35. One of the things we're going to be talking about, because Ford is saying the UAW union is coming and they think we have all this money. Yeah, our profits are up, but because of people like Joe Biden taking away the freedom of choice. That's one of the inherent pillars of the United States of America. You get freedom of choice. Joe is taking that away from people. Ford is saying we're having to spend all this money to convert everything to build these electric cars because the president, the emperor, is making you do that. These people don't understand. Congressman Mark Alford, I'll only keep you another few minutes. I know this was kind of a last-minute thing. You see anything substantial coming out of the Merrick Garland weaponization of the Department of Justice hearings today?
I certainly hope so. I think he needs a reality check. I'm watching right now of him going into the Rayburn office, getting ready to testify. Look, we need some straight answers. The American people aren't stupid. They know that we have a two-tier system of justice in America, and Merrick Garland is part of the problem. But he's going to get up there and obfuscate and gaslight the American people just like Mayorkas. I don't think he'll come right out and lie to Congress like Mayorkas has in the past and continues to do. But they've got to get real. They've got to realize that what they're doing in their persecution of President Trump through this political persecution, they finally, I think, came to their senses on Hunter Biden. But look what that took. That took, people making a stink about it. And David Weiss turning his prosecution around to where they were actually going to have something substantial. And now these indictments have come out against Hunter Biden. But, this is far from over. We've got to restore confidence in the American judicial system and federal law enforcement. If we don't have those two things, I think we're lost as a nation.
Is that what we're hearing in the background? Is that your timer? Like, hey, Mark, you got to go because whatever that is in your office, we're hearing it. Does that mean
fries are done? Clock on my wall. Y'all need to come up and visit. But every congressman has his clock, and that's a call that we're going to have the floor open in 15 minutes.
All right.
There's all kinds of buzzers that go off throughout the day, and I have no idea what half of them mean.
All right. Impeachment inquiry starts next week. Are you hopeful that anything really substantial will come out of that, Congressman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
and I know you're talking to Jason Smith a little bit later. He's very instrumental in this through Ways and Means, and I think the records are getting to the IRS whistleblower, everything we do. I don't want to make it clear to your listeners, all right? This is not impeachment committee hearing. This is an inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
This allows Congress to get the information that we need to make an intelligent decision as where we should go to the next step. So this just opens the doors that we can get the bank records, the phone records. You know, I hear it all the time. Well, there's no direct evidence to link Joe Biden to all this. Well, you've got $20 to $60 million coming into 20 different shell companies and going to all these bank accounts, paying off members of his family. This money's coming from Russia, China, Ukraine, and Romania. What the heck do you think the money's going for? They're not buying shoes from the Biden family. They're buying influence and the Biden brand. And so how much is the big guy getting out of all this? We're going to find out and then take the next steps. But you've got to have this impeachment inquiry.
Let your guy, Austin, know how much we appreciated his efforts, because it's a very important topic for you to talk to your constituents about. The constituents appreciates the work of Austin in getting you on the show this morning. Final question. Can you leave us with something, leave the listeners here of Wake Up Mid-Missouri with something positive this morning, Congressman?
My beautiful wife, Leslie, came up yesterday. I don't know how long we're going to be here in Washington. I'm told that when the shutdown happens, we have to stay here. But I am confident in that we live in the greatest nation known to man. I'm honored to be here. And as Ronald Reagan said some 40 years ago, when our nation was divided then, and I believe we're divided now as a nation, it's time for us to reassert our trust in God. It's time to realize that we need him more than he needs us. It's time to turn to God for the healing of America. Leslie and I, each day, we did this morning, we pray for our nation. We pray for the healing that needs to happen. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the solution to find healing in America. And I thank you guys for helping us do that.
Mr. Alford, thank you for your time here on the show this morning, and we'll catch up with you next time. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer here at 8:10 in case things get really wonky today. And then Congressman Jason Smith is actually, it's something we seldomly do on a Feel Good Friday. We occasionally will have guests, but it's kind of like, feel good stuff. Seldomly in the political vein do we have guests on a Feel Good Friday, but that's this dude here with barstool knowledge of politics. That's how much we're on this. He's going to be here on Friday.
Huge. That's a big deal.
Coming up a few minutes from now, we're going to be doing some leftovers. Why I am, the guy, Oliver Anthony, had that song, had like 5 of the top 10 songs in the iTunes downloads. Richmond, north of Richland. He just did something that makes me love the guy even more. That's coming up next in Leftovers.
Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to.
Oh, a lot of us are liking this Oliver Anthony dude. He did the song "Old Men, Rich Men North of Richland."
With an whole soul.
Just a dude, like outside of his little camper trailer, little makeshift stage, probably made him like those milk cartons or something.
Great beard.
Great beard, red hair.
Got the old time dobro.
Got the dobro, man, and he put out a song and like it went insane. Number 1 on iTunes for several weeks. At one point had 5 of the top 10 songs. A couple of weeks ago, this guy was, he was just a dude. But he resonated with what people are doing. And then the latest thing that he has done makes me like the guy even more. He was going to do a show. I think it was in, it was Tennessee or Kentucky. And one of those places.
One of them.
Tennessee. They're interchangeable.
Air Force, Marines.
Air Force. Yeah. He was set to perform in Knoxville. He heard how much the tickets would cost fans. He's like, well, that's BS. He says they're supposed to be affordable to go see these shows. Please don't pay $90 for a ticket. He said this on Facebook. He says, I'm going to work out with details. Ultimately, the concert was canceled. New show now expected to take place at the Knoxville Convention Center next week. Tickets to the concert were $25. And the meet and greet, how much it costs to meet and greet with this dude? Free. That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and as I recall, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I remember Garth Brooks kind of got into this with whoever was, when concert tickets were handled a little bit differently then. The venues that would sell the tickets, he's like, no. He says, they're coming to my show. He says, you do something different with these prices. So I one of the things that I did respect Garth Brooks for. Marsh, what you got for leftovers?
Sounds like Lincoln University, if you're optimistic, could be in the, maybe in the federal pipeline for some more money. They got a letter in the mail from the Secretary of Education that said Lincoln and 15 other HBCUs have been deprived of $12.5 billion, as Brian says, billion with a B, in funding over the past 30 years, and Lincoln's share could be $360 million.
John, if you and I were to go have lunch somewhere and talk about that, we would talk about the impacts if that happens, if Lincoln got $360 million, what would the impact of that be? What would our conversation be like?
I think it'd be a whole lot more kids interested in additional degree programs and more money for athletics that bring in a lot of students. I think it'd be a win-win.
Well, was it Lincoln who a year or two ago, they got a bunch of money maybe from like around COVID time and they gave each student a little bit of money back?
Yeah, I think
was
that was
Lincoln?
Their plan, and they also, thanks in no small part to Governor Parson and the legislature, just in the past few years, they've received full state funding, which means finally they can cash in on the federal matching bucks.
Yeah, and that's important. You think about some of these kids. Hey, we're looking for education. We're looking for choices. What can we do? It would present some options. Found money. Susan Collins, senator from Maine. She's talking about this dress code. Listen, I get it.
Of course you get it.
Says the guy who wears shorts and flip-flops.
Exactly.
Every day into political fundraisers and things like that. I wear the flip-flop.
Yeah, but you wash your hoodie on a regular basis.
So they've changed the rules for Fetterman because he likes to dress like he's just robbed a convenience store or something. Susan Collins from Maine.
I plan to wear a bikini tomorrow to the Senate floor to do away with the dress code. To me.
Yep.